The transition from the brick-and-mortar structure to click-and-order model started with the emergence of information technology and its use in the financial sector. The use of technology in banking has resulted in availability of multiple delivery channels like ATMs, telebanking, internet banking, and mobile banking. A study found that the research funded by the soft drinks industry have different results from research funded by other sources and went on to suggest that there may have been biased by the research itself. The whole point of the scientific methods is to ensure the research results are not influenced by the source of funding. As introverts are thinking, they reach back into long-term memory to locate information. An introvert will often compare old and new experiences when making the decision, which slows the processing down but leads to carefully thought-out decisions. This means that introverts have an active dialogue with themselves and usually walk around with many thoughts in their minds. In 1861, Matthew Brady, a well-known portrait photographer, approached President Lincoln requesting permission to move freely about the country photographing the Civil War. Lincoln granted him permission to travel anywhere with the Union armies, and his record of this conflict brought home to millions the horrors of war. The Southerners did not accept Lincoln as a president because of certain reasons, based on historical grounds. Southerners wished to protect their rights in the government and become more independent from the North. They considered president elections to be unfair. Previous research has offered circumstantial evidence that Ganymede, the largest moon in the solar system, contains more water than all of Earth's oceans. However, temperatures there are so cold that water on the surface is frozen solid. Ganymede's ocean would reside roughly 100 miles below the crust, therefore, the water vapor would not represent the evaporation of this ocean. The ubiquitous neurotransmitter that carries signals between brain cells, dopamine, among its many functions, is involved in multiple aspects of cognitive processing. The chemical messenger has been extensively studied from the perspective of external cues, or deterministic signals. Over time the split would have appeared in wolf populations, he says, those wolves that feared humans, and those that didn't. So this would have facilitated, I think, the domestication process. At which point humans deliberately took wolves as pets. But the domestication process, France says, may have happened more than once, first in the West, in Europe, and again in the Far East, in Asia. L says that, in order to seek protecting from their furry foes, birds actually prefer to build their nests in plots of swamp with a resident alligator. In fact, in one study a graduate student planted fake alligators. The birds seem to prefer to build nests close to them. Where there's a water source, there are alligators, so it's sort of this moat of protection around these colonies. History is selective. What history books tell us about the past is not everything that happened, but what historians have selected. They cannot put in everything. Choices have to be made. Choices must similarly be made about which aspects of the past should be formally taught to the next generation in the shape of school history lessons. An economic depression is a period of sustained, long-term downturn in economic activity in one or more economies. It is more severe than a recession, which is a slowdown in economic activity over the course of a normal business cycle. Economic depressions are characterized by their length, and by abnormally large increases in unemployment rate. As a child, you might dream one day of becoming an astronaut and, the next day, of becoming a ballet dancer. The possibilities are endless. Eventually, this wealth of choice is whittled down by external circumstances and internal interests. Similarly, precursor cells in early embryos make a series of stepwise decisions governed by external forces and internal factors to generate the diverse array of cell types present in adult organisms. Seismology is the scientific study of earthquakes and the propagation of elastic waves through the Earth or through other planet-like bodies. The field also includes studies of earthquake environmental effects such as tsunamis as well as diverse seismic sources such as volcanic, tectonic, glacial, fluvial, oceanic, atmospheric, and artificial processes such as explosions. The related field that uses geology to infer information regarding past earthquakes is paleoseismology. As a child, you might dream one day of becoming an astronaut and, the next day, of becoming a ballet dancer. The possibilities are endless. Eventually, this wealth of choice is whittled down by external circumstances and internal interests. Similarly, precursor cells in early embryos make a series of stepwise decisions governed by external forces and internal factors to generate the diverse array of cell types present in adult organisms. From a child's point of view, what is the purpose of TV advertising? Is advertising on TV done to give actors the opportunity to take a rest or practice their lines? Or is it done to make people buy things? Furthermore, is the main difference between programs and commercials that commercials are for real, whereas programs are not, or that programs are for kids and commercials for adults? Having the same dream again and again is a well-known phenomenon. Nearly 2/3 of the population report having recurrent dreams. Being chased, finding yourself naked in a public place or in the middle of a natural disaster, losing your teeth or forgetting to go to class for an entire semester are typical recurrent scenarios in these dreams. Modern science says, the sun is the past, the earth is the present, the moon is the future. From an incandescent mass we have originated, and into a frozen mass we shall turn. Merciless is the law of nature, and rapidly and irresistibly we are drawn to our doom. Reserve requirements are the proportions of the deposits that banks must keep on hand and are not allowed to lend out. For example, if the reserve requirement is 10% and you deposit $100 in a bank, the bank can lend $90 of that $100 to someone else. But it is not allowed to lend the remaining $10. Finally, the experimenters examined real insects to see if leg adhesion might also play a role in the walking coordination of real flies. They put polymer drops on the flies' legs to cover their claws and adhesive pads, as if the flies were wearing boots, and watched what happened. The flies quickly began to use bipod-like leg coordination similar to the one discovered in the simulation. Much of today's business is conducted across international borders, and while the majority of the global business community might share the use of English as a common language, the nuances and expectations of business communication might differ greatly from culture to culture.